Okay, confession. I hate live readings with a passion. It's somewhat odd. I get up and dance on stage with little stage fright. I do presentations and run meetings in my day job, so getting up in front of people is not a huge deal for me. And writing wise, I've done a lot of nonfiction. I tend to overshare on the internet. For anyone who follows me is probably pretty familiar with that. But somehow the combination of the two, both being physically in front of people and also sharing something that came out of my head, is just, it's too much. So I hate public readings. But as I'm working to become a better professional author, readings are part of it. So, in that goal, I'm going to try to practice our live readings. And as in person is not an option, it's going to be a video. So, this is kind of cheating, but I'm going to take it and I'm going to read an excerpt from Savages because August is the month of Savages. And I'm going to keep all the mess ups in here because that's what live is like. So, I'm going to read from Savages. In this excerpt, my two main characters have just killed a bunch of savages and come across some supplies, so that's where we pick up. A small pile of cans did remain on the floor, but I was impressed at how much he had managed to Tetris into those bug-out bags. Calmly, I looked down at him. Then the wave swelled up within me, taking me by surprise and causing me to waver in my boots. Every cell in my body screamed out to touch him. Repopulate, flesh, connection. Yet every iota of my logic screamed, no. Somewhere within me, my primal wiring crossed. Carnage intersected carnal. Adrenaline begged endorphins. After being so close to death, I wanted to feel alive. With each survival, I felt closer to him, and something in me begged to consummate that. My desire for him was like my desire to eat my gun. Every morning. It was not something I did, it was something I lived with. We gotta check out the other house, he said, thankfully snapping me back to myself. The finds had animated him. He was no longer trudging. He had been infected by an energy different than that of victory. I strained to separate my consciousness as far as possible from my foolish flesh and focused on following him again. We abandoned our former bags on the dingy, flattened carpet and heaved their replacements onto our backs. We exited through the sliding glass door into the backyard, which adjoined the three others. The deck furniture twisted into a barely recognizable mass of metal and shattered glass. The grass had long ago perished, and it crunched under our feet. A doghouse slumped forgotten beside the fallen fence. That's when we heard it, the sound piercing the silent world. It split my skull. My uterus tightened, and my nipples flushed as if milk was flooding in. It was the cry of a child, that unmistakable infant scream. He froze in front of me mid-stride, one foot dangling above the ground. When was the last time we'd heard a child? Could children still exist in this place? Something familiar and forgotten welled up inside me. Quivering, my breathing fell quick and shallow until tears fell on my cheeks. The world started to flicker as I hyperventilated. He turned and tipped his ballistic sunglasses forward to look at me before the scene blinked out. In those endless seconds, I saw the square lights of the delivery room, the blonde curls tied back on the nurse coaching me and holding my anesthetized leg, the blue cap of the doctor looking between my leg. Dante's hand clutched my shoulder as he leaned forward anxiously. I was losing him to the moment, to his anticipation. My lungs were burning as Goldilocks counted 8, 9, 10, beside me. My leg trembled in her arms, my face contorted as I pushed blindly into relief. It's a boy, Dante was crying. I felt a smile tease my exhausted lips. Then his cry ruptured my world. I threw up the barbecue chips at our feet. We didn't speak. He continued to look at me over dusty sunglasses, volumes spoken in that silence. For the first time since our many months or years, I thought I might have seen fear in the edges of his face, actual panic. Somewhere, writhing beneath well-checking me, this was something he did not know how to handle. The continued sound of the infant shrieking brought me back. I breathed deliberately through my mouth as I followed him, counting my exhales like in yoga to focus my mind, keeping those hazardous memories at bay. 8, 9, 10. The sound persisted, kept shooting out of the next house at us like arrows, threatening to fracture the planet until it divided underneath us and swallowed us whole. How could a sound that once governed my world be so foreign and unbelievable? I didn't know I could want to die more than I did the day before, any of those hellish days before. It was as if I could feel the sound breaking against me, as if we were battling our way against prevailing winds. We marched tentatively across the brittle grass and into the house that shared the backyard. Their small community. No safety procedures this time. No cautious casing and entry. He plowed through the sliding glass door, barreled through the kitchen without a glance to evaluate any resources. The child lured him in with singular focus. The interior of the house whipped past me in a blur as I kept my eyes to his back and my steps at his heels. My heart thudded in my ears as I kept counting my breath and followed mechanically. We found him in a closet at the top of the stairs. A closet. Smart. More secure. His small body was swaddled in tattered blankets on the floor. He could be left on the floor alone while his parents went to slay drifters since he was too young to move. He was conceived and born into this disgusting world. He would have no memory of the one we mourned that had come before it. He stopped in front of the closet, frozen, arms down at his side, weapon still in hand. He just stared down at the whimpering ball of flesh. Then suddenly he roused, snapping back into himself. He slipped his sword into its sheath on his back, tucked his gun into his holster, and bent down very slowly as he reached to cradle the infant. I couldn't watch. The hallway closed in around me. It was suddenly so stifling, so unsafe. The sound of my own erratic breathing deafened me. My hands went numb, and I could feel myself starting to shake. I turned and ran. I sprinted down the carpeted stairs, over the torn linoleum in the kitchen, back out into the glaring light of the dead backyard. My steps were sloppy and desperate. I staggered out onto the rotten grass and just meandered in a circle, digging my hands into my hair. He had the small child enveloped in his arms when he caught up to me, ratty blanket dangling out from his embrace. He was looking down at the child, whose fit had now dwindled into shuddering sobs. The baby was bright red from screaming. I turned away from them and leaned forward with my hands on my knees, struggling to find my breath. He stepped around me to face me and just looked up at me calmly. "If we take this child, it will get us killed," I finally said. "If we don't, what we have done will kill this child. Children die now. They all die. This world is not good enough for them anymore. I had children. I buried my babies. You're a mother, and you can say that?" "I say that because I am a mother. Was a mother. I miss my babies every day, but I would rather them be buried than living through this. We killed his chance. We did that. Not this world. He's our responsibility." Is that like intervening when a woman is being beaten to death? It would be a mercy, not a tragedy. Was it mercy in the field today? No, that was survival. The survival you taught me. So what then? We leave him to starve. We beat his head in with a rock, like the fucking savages? Tell me. I had no words. I stood breathing, reeling. As always, I could not argue with him, no matter how my very core screamed against it. I could not walk his line unless he dragged me. "You expect me to be his new mother?" I said coldly, looking away. "I expect you to be a human being. We are still that, after all. Humans. As long as we're living." "One happy family," I muttered, trudging, turning and storming back into the second house. A baby. How could there be a baby in this world? How could he want to take this baby around this world? This was going to get us fucking killed. I could not be around that goddamn baby, could not have it stirring up all I buried in those two small graves. I felt the throbbing of rage and panic and fear and pain and every single heavy emotion that had ever slammed through my veins. My eyes were welling up, and I was teetering on the edge of the present again. "This one looks like me too," Dante cooed into my ear as the new babe suckled at my breast between us. Dante pressed his hand against the top of the tiny head as I ran my finger slowly along the miniature arm. No, baby, not so lucky this time, I replied calmly. Those eyes are mine. Just you wait. I crouched against the wall, sobbing as my former life receded. Dante, Jordy, Eli. I could not keep their names from dancing in the wrinkles of my brain. 3 sets of eyes, 2 brown and 1 hazel, staring into me, dead and lifeless. 3 voices echoed around my mind, beckoning me from the past. I could not escape my boys. Their ghosts perpetually possessed me, held me permanently as their prisoner to our lost and haunted life. They pulled me into the undertow, a sea of memory nearly drowned me, then abandoned me once more. They left me sputtering on the empty shore. Alone. I knew I was softly crying, though it didn't matter. A day had not gone by without tears gracing my cheeks since the first of the horrors started washing up on our life. My eyes and face were anesthetized, immune, as if what I felt mattered anymore. The counting returned, the slow breathing. My mind lapped back on the shore of the real. I could feel the present reality by the suicidal drone humming in my bones. I mopped up my face on my sleeve and pulled my shit together. We would need supplies. End scene. It's not horrible-ish, but practice. So that's Savages. If you want to hear it read in someone's voice that is much better than mine, it is available on audiobook on Amazon. So follow the links.